Okay, back once again, episode 4, Shooter Shit Podcast. Again, remember to like, listen, and subscribe on Apple iTunes Podcast, Google Play, and on Soundcloud. I'm back with my man Landy once again. How you feeling, homeboy?
Yo, good to be in the house again.
Yeah, now people ain't got to hear me rant and ramble for 40 minutes by myself like I did last week. So that's a good thing. So I guess we'll jump right into it. So you probably didn't hear it.
I just saw. I just saw.
You just saw it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Minnesota and Houston playing tonight. So look like the way it happened, look like Nene. So if don't nobody know about it, or you probably know about by the time you hear the recording, Jimmy Butler got carried off in the game against the Rockets tonight. So it's like the way that happened, Nene kind of fell into his knee. His knee buckled. He was saying he was cool. Then he got the ball back, took a dribble, and then without any contact, his right knee gave again, and fell to the ground immediately. It was so bad. Chris Paul told me don't move, don't move. Then they ended up carrying him out the court, and you can tell the minute he grabbed his knee, you can tell it didn't look good. So hopefully it's not what it looks like, but more than likely it's going to be one of those type of injuries, man. So what's your thoughts about that?
Some type of CL. Well, I'll say this. It is unfortunate because it looks like the Timberwolves are finally going to make the playoffs this year with the team they had. With that said, I don't think they were really going to make too much noise, but they were going to at least make the playoffs. But nonetheless, it's a shame that happened to to a young guy like Butler. He's going to be out. I mean, that it looks like an ACL, MCL type thing, especially since there was no contact on the play. So he's going to be out for, a while. He's definitely not going to be back by, beginning of the season, October, November. They're going to need Wiggins to step up. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I don't know what else they do at this point unless, the All-Star break done come and gone, so the trade deadline, I guess, is pretty much, the trade deadline's over. I don't know if there's anybody on waivers or something. I mean, they might just have to look with.
Yeah, I kind of explained to you my thoughts about Andrew Wiggins. I call him the Cameron in the NBA. So he will need to put up a SDE and not a purple haze. If you want to take the comparison further. All the Cameron fans probably know what I'm talking about. Yeah, man, it's crazy. And I know probably a couple of things with that with Jimmy Butler. I know one of the first things I saw people, commenting on Twitter was about Tibbs caused the injury. Which, I know how Tibbs run people to the ground, but Jimmy Butler is one of the type of cats, man, that you're going to have to, literally pull him up the court to get him out the court, man. Or as it was this past All-Star week when he's going to be too drunk to get on the court. Or too hungover to get on the court, man. I don't know if you heard about that.
I'm listening.
Yeah, so All-Star weekend, he was the only player that didn't play in the game on Sunday. He said he wanted to get some rest.
All right.
And it was people were saying I read that they saw I don't know, it was on IG or something, hanging out late that night. So also we was in LA, so you know how that goes.
Yeah.
And then Eddie added another layer to it. So apparently, Lou Williams said something about that to the fact, get selected for the All-Star game, you don't play, blah, blah, blah. I don't know the direct tweet, but he said something to the fact, kind of alluding to, Jimmy Butler not playing in the game, he got selected. So before this game started, Jimmy Butler mentioned to Cassie Hubbard on ESPN, that's probably before the game started, that, Lou Williams felt some type of way, put up $100,000 and play him one-on-one. To show that whether or not he deserved to be an All-Star or not. So I don't know if that was a basketball god. I don't want to bring the basketball guys into play, but it's a lot of layers to what happened right now, and coincidentally, just happened to Jimmy Butler tonight.
Yeah, that's a shame, and kind of like it kind of reminds me of the past NFL season where there were all these notable names going down in injuries, and it seems to be happening in basketball. With Hayward in the beginning of the year, Boogie, Butler. I mean, like the names, some notable names have been getting hurt. But that hurts the T-Wolves big
time, man.
Big time. I mean, he was one of the focal pieces. When they brought him over in that trade with Chicago, that was supposed to be one of those moves to kind of help them get over that hurdle. So yeah, Cameron gonna have to bring it.
The Canadian Cameron.
Yeah,
it's
unfortunate.
No, go ahead.
But
yeah, to bring that right back to it. Earlier this week, I don't know if you heard the whole thing with Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah,
Pop at that press conference or whatever, pretty much saying it's highly unlikely that Kawhi be back to play, the rest of the season. There's a couple of different ways to look at that. I probably guess the first way to look at it with that injury, and then with potentially Jimmy Butler's injury, that opened up a lot for Oklahoma City.
Yeah,
they might not be able to catch Minnesota or San Antonio for the third spot, but it's the fact they probably end up getting one of those two teams in the first round. That gives them an opening, at least to get to the second round, which it probably didn't look, as likely.
Yeah.
But sometimes all you need is a couple breaks here and there.
Yeah.
You never know whether they get in the second round, whether it's Golden State or Houston. With those three cats with that playoff experience and stuff that they got, they can make it real interesting.
They definitely can. They definitely can. They've been kind of one of those teams this year where, they didn't get off to the best start, and they have their up and downs, but they keep lurking. They kind of keep lurking around. And every once in a while, they're showing people flashes of what they could be. And yeah, you never know. By the time the postseason starts, they might be able to put something together with those three. They just might, and obviously the defense has been one of those things. But, guys like Adams, he stepped it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could.
Almost got that kind of.
I mean, although at this point, it's still the Warriors to lose, and Houston's been pretty solid when Paul and Harden play together. But going back to the Kawhi thing, it's starting to come out now. It's showing with the tension, but after that injury last year to the Warriors, everybody was waiting for him to come back, and it seems like he probably did come back too soon. So he's looking out for himself right now, and in some ways I can't blame him. They need him because that roster is kind of struggling compared to how the Spurs have been in the past. But
exactly,
it don't make sense for him to keep rushing back from injury for a team that's not really like this ain't their year. Like they're not. This ain't one of them years where they're gonna make a deep run. So it would be in vain for him to risk his future for a second round exit. At best.
Exactly, especially with free agency coming up after next season.
Yeah, he got avoidable an option year coming. So you gotta look out for himself. You got to.
And eligible for the Supermax. So that's like $200 million right there. So it's a lot of money on the table, man.
Yeah, that's nothing to play around with. Now, I was listening to something a little while ago before starting. Now, if they don't, if they can't work something out, obviously he can make the most money signing with them. If he decides to go elsewhere, I guess they could do it like like they've been doing with other guys like Chris Paul and other ones where you kind of agree in principle to, like that sign and trade type stuff. But it doesn't look good right now for him staying with that organization. So of course I have to do my shameless plug right now of the process, and It's already been talk, which I'm sure you're gonna get into with another player, but you could put Kawhi on that list for being one of these 3-and-D type guys. He can help. You can help lead that young Sixers team. Perfect spot for him. Think about it. Between him, Simmons, and Embiid, that's a lot of length right there. If you do like a 1, 3, and 5, and then you fill in the other positions with, Fultz. I don't know if Reddick would come back on a reduced salary. Probably not. But you add a few guys, sprinkle it in there. That's a nasty lineup with those 3 guys itself.
Yeah. Then Robert Covington, don't forget him. Like he's
I'm not forgetting
like 6'8",
him.
6'9".
Yeah, I ain't gonna forget him, but I'm just saying, like, just with them 3 alone, that's long.
Yeah.
You really have a defensive-minded team, and of course, Kawhi can still score. So if he can be healthy, it might be worth the money. I mean, the Sixers got a lot of cap space. They got a lot of cap space on the season.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Like man could dream. I know you're getting greedy, man. Get with the Braves on Broad Street, man.
Got to, man. This might just be the time, if you could start putting something together. We could have our own little title town. Forget Boston and some of these other places. We could have our own little run right now. Flyers on a run too. we might get everybody in this thing. Why not?
Oh man, it figures if something like that happens, man. It's been long enough.
Could be the beginning.
But another interesting thing that kind of broke tonight, staying in the realm of basketball, but not directly connected. Well, I guess kind of connected to NBA, with the NCAA and the FBI wiretaps, all these different big name schools being mentioned.
Yeah,
I know you probably heard the story from Yahoo yesterday.
Yeah,
about all different players and stuff like that. Well, broke not that long ago. Sean Miller, the coach of Arizona, you got a wiretap of him talking to, I guess it's the guy Christian Dawkins who worked for ASM.
Yeah, I keep hearing his name.
Yeah, so apparently they in the wiretap it was mentioned to send $100,000 to DeAndre Ayton, who was the kid they just brought in this year, was top recruit, possibly player of the year candidate, and probably top 1 or 2 pick this year in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
He's like averaging something like 19 a 10. I think we would talk about him. Maybe I think the second podcast we did, I was kind of explaining to about him, like how he's like a beast, like he's like legit 7'1", and is like big 7'1", but can move and shoot threes and all that crazy stuff. But the bottom line, man, that don't look good. Like number 1 rule, man, don't get caught in them phones, man.
Yeah, that's kind of sloppy in this day and age. A lot of these coaches have gotten real clever with their recruiting tactics. That's just sloppy, and nowadays to get caught up on the wiretap is that's definitely not good. Especially after the casino thing.
Mm-hmm.
All these things. They're making examples out of the NCAA is going to make examples out of people to keep themselves clean, at least so they think. So they're going to make examples of everything.
It's so crazy. Like they look each time more and more information get leaked out about the FBI investigation, the worse the NCAA looks. Because all this stuff was going on. It's been going on for years, definitely like decades.
Oh yeah.
So for a coach to get caught in a wiretap like that means he's comfortable. It means he's done it more than once.
Oh, without a doubt. Even with the Patino thing with the sneakers and obviously with these payments to the people, like I know we talked about this, I think, on one of the first podcasts. I keep thinking of blue chips. I keep thinking of the blue chips, and it keeps playing out the same way, except they're getting more than a tractor, or it's the same principle. And like we said, even we've seen it on the campus of a school that's not a major powerhouse. So this stuff been going on at the Power 5 conference schools, and like you said, it's just the first time they got caught. They've been doing this type of stuff. I mean, they all tamper.
And
You
And
know,
that's
that's
what and what I ain't mean to cut you off. What kind of pissed me off about all this stuff, man, is when you think about it and kind of break it down even further. Like I said, but this stuff has been going on for a while. And then if you kind of take a step further with the whole what they call it, the APR is basically kind of the system how you kind of determine whether or not a school is eligible for like postseason stuff like that, like based upon like their grades and test scores, those type of things, like kids attending classes, those types of things.
Mhm.
And the schools that ultimately get hit the hardest from that, get penalized based upon that, are usually the historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs.
Mm.
So they're already working at a disadvantage from just like an institutional disadvantage.
Right.
And then when they try to compete on the Division I level, they get dinged because of that lack of resources.
Right.
And one way to kind of play catch up is with sports. And when you make these tournaments and bowl games, stuff like that, you get money from that.
Yeah.
Then and they already been ostracized and blocked from being a part. You said those Big Five, Big Six conferences. It just trickles down and it snowballs, man. So it's like these other schools have been so reckless for so long, been so arrogant for so long, and it takes the federal government basically kind of intervene to kind of expose them for what they're doing, as opposed to the actual governing body, which is the NCAA, to kind of expose what's going on, the corruption that's going on. So it kind of pissed me off, man. It just kind of sheds more light of the imbalance and everything, man. Educational system, athletics, everything, man.
Yeah. And the hypocrisy too. We've seen over years guys get in trouble for getting a little money for signing an autograph or selling one of their championship rings or different little small stupid stuff. A booster gives you $200 and you lose your eligibility, and it's like NCAA is a business first and foremost. Even though it's a nonprofit, it's a business first and foremost, and it's really catching up with them a whole lot. I mean, you just like everything's coming together. I mean, obviously you had the O'Bannon case a few years ago that started to kind of chip away at this facade, and even though that he wasn't necessarily victorious with the case, it stretched the envelope, it pushed the envelope, and got people a little more involved with seeing what's going on. And then you got the LeVar Ball thing. Now, obviously, that was just a concept, but again, he's like, look, they're not paying you. We could pay you, and you don't have to worry about getting sanctioned and all this nonsense. I heard something interesting. I think he recorded it maybe a couple of days ago, but I was looking at something from Colin Cowherd, and he said that in his opinion, he thinks that the NBA is trying to kind of distance itself from the NCAA. And he thinks that maybe they'll get rid of the one and done rule and have that translate into these guys going to the G League. But the only way I could see something like that is if they start paying in the G League a little more than they do now, because the G League doesn't really pay more than I think 50, 60,000 a year. But the LeVar Ball thing made sense. Like, those guys can get paid, and you can be playing against other talent to get yourself ready for the NBA. But going back to what we've been saying with this, though, the NCAA has been so tight with all these rules and regulations on these kids, and it's these coaches and these programs that are ones committing the biggest sins, the biggest penalties.
Yeah,
and these kids are just getting the balance.
Yeah, I think was I guess is a good thing now on top of the investigation stuff that's going on. Like with social media and stuff, a lot of the student athletes or what is so-called student athletes, they're speaking up now. They know what the game is and they put it out there.
Yeah.
Especially like on a basketball side of things, most of these kids know they're only going to school for a semester because that goal is to get to the league. They don't have that same loyalty like kids would have in the past because they know this is just a stopgap right now. I'm here to take care of business to get to where I'm running to get to.
I just read something. Apparently, I guess based on all these scandals, Jalen Rose is 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 encouraging some of these NCAA stars to sit out, to not play in the tournament, kind of like the way the BCS players now, or some of them are not playing the bowl games. You
Yeah,
know, if you're not in the playoff bowl games, the guys are sitting out so they don't risk injury before they get drafted. He's
exactly.
encouraging guys to do not play in the tournament. To use that almost as leverage. To show that the players, the players are the product. So you don't have a product without the players.
Exactly.
And so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I mean, they're gonna have to figure something out. I mean, I think they have to go the way of a stipend or some type of compensation, because it's only gonna get worse. It's only gonna get worse, and now that these coaches are getting exposed, it just really, that's when the money starts getting lost, because
Hmm.
sanctions and stripping scholarships, and once you start stripping scholarships, you can't get those recruits. You know,
Yeah,
so it's going to be that's where it's going to start hitting them in their pockets. If you can only offer X amount of spots, those guys are going to be going to your rival, and and other things. So
yeah, it's going to happen. And listen, like if we're being realistic, like the NCAA, like college basketball specifically, it isn't going away. It's still going to be. It's still going to exist,
yeah,
even if most like the top players bypass it altogether and go to the G League or whatever league to prepare, for the NBA, or even go directly to the NBA if the NBA drops a one and done rule. Like it's not going to go away, but a lot of these, so-called coaches, Taz had to get back to what they used to do, or what got them to the point where they at. It's actually coach and develop kids. Because like I look at a lot of the top kids, it's ultimately pointless for them to play that 1 year in college. Especially like the real top elite players. A lot of them are so far ahead, so far, head and shoulders above everybody else.
hmm
From a physical standpoint, from a talent standpoint, they're not gaining anything from playing in college unless the coach themselves is put them in a situation where they're developing skills
right.
that's going to be prepared on for the league. Like probably the example that sticks out to me was when Karl Anthony Towns was at Kentucky.
hmm
Now those skills that he's shown and he has in the league, he for the most part had like the perimeter skills. Like he could shoot from three, he can handle a ball, he can pass, those types of things. It was real skill. When he was at Kentucky, John Calipari kind of forced him to play with his back to the basket, to work on that aspect of his game. Because out of everything else, he was a skilled big man, but that might have been like the one hole that he had in his game at that point in time.
Right.
So you didn't see any of those skills that he's now showing right now in the league. His 1 year at Kentucky.
Right.
So by the time he got to those workouts, he got to his first year, it was like oh shit, like he could do a lot.
Yeah.
On top of with his back to the basket. So tying all that together, unless a coach is going to put a player in that type of situation, where
hmm
he's going to have him on the court, do what's best for the team to get them to win, but also do what's best for the player too, long term, to kind of develop a skill that he's actually lacking in.
Yeah.
There's no point for the player to play in college.
You're right. And Ben Simmons, I remember Ben Simmons had that interview talking about how much of a waste of time it pretty much was. Especially if you ain't at one of them schools, at one of those like blue chip schools that's getting 100% coverage and all of that. Funny you mentioned that thing about Towns at Kentucky, because that's the other part of this. Like the top schools recruit the top players, but it's not always the best fit. For example,
Yeah.
at Temp, John Chaney had a top, he always had like a top 10, top 15 program every year. But the main thing of his program was defense, and it wasn't a high scoring
Yeah.
offense. So if you were like
defensive protective. Yeah.
if you were a top shooter or a high flying dunker, that wasn't going to work for you going to Temple because that wasn't the style of play that they had. Um, and a lot of these guys, like Coach K, he's a system guy. A lot of these schools are, they have systems where a guy's individual talent might not show, kind of like you were saying, because they have them playing a certain part in that system. Now, conversely, it can also mask somebody's weaknesses sometimes too. Although in Okafor's case, the weaknesses, his lack of defense did show at Duke, but since they have a system and play zone, they were able to mask his weakness and still win the championship. So it could go either way.
But that's the thing. That's what's crazy about that. I'm glad you brought him up because I was about to be my next point. Like, Coach K usually doesn't play man.
Right.
He was forced to play zone to keep Okafor on the court.
Right.
Like, Okafor's 1 year at Duke, like you said, it masked all his weaknesses. He didn't get better that year.
No.
Even though they won the chip.
Actually, in the championship game, he had a pretty crappy game in that championship game.
He got exposed in that game. Like, pretty much that whole tournament run.
Yeah.
It was the person that shined was Justice Winslow.
Right.
But and then to bring it forward to this year, the kid they got this year, Marvin Bagley, kind of same situation. The kid is like, he's dominant. He's an elite offensive player.
Right.
But defense is what he's lacking again.
Yeah.
So which Coach K is doing? What any coach supposed to do? Like, you play to your strengths, try to hide your weaknesses. He's playing zone again.
Right.
So it's helping the team, but it's not helping the kid.
Right.
The kid, I mean, he's hurt right now. I think this last couple games, but still the same thing. And another one of his weaknesses is like, because he's kind of like an in between. He's like a big, but he's not big enough to play the five. He's not a good defender, like I mentioned.
Right.
And he's not he's skilled, but he's not skilled enough like on the ball to kind of play the four or anything like that. He's not that great of a shooter. So pretty much all he's doing is Duke. He's playing inside because he's just bigger and more athletic than everybody else. So those holes he's having in his game, he's still gonna have in his game by the time he gets to the league.
Yeah. Well, that's, again, kind of like you're saying with this waste of time. Like, if it wasn't for the one and done thing, Bagley would have just he would have just jumped straight in. And, and then I think Duke has another top recruit already for next year, Zion Williams. I think he's a Duke recruit. So it's like, Coach K will take those rentals, get from them what he needs so he can keep this program relevant. But yeah, it ain't like the old days where it's like, okay, these guys will develop in college and then come into the league NBA ready. And obviously you're not going to do that in 1 year. I mean, those were generational players every once in a while when you had an underclassman. I mean, look at it. Corey Maggette was really like the first guy to leave Duke after 1 year. And Coach K didn't endorse it at first. He kind of co-signed by the time the draft came, but he wasn't really too thrilled with this guy leaving. Before you wouldn't leave prior to junior year. If you were really good, maybe sophomore, but to leave as a freshman, those were the exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
We could rattle off the whole list. I mean, Jason Kidd went at least 2 years. Grant Hill was 4 years. Elton Brand was 3 years. A lot of these guys.
Elton Brand was 2 years.
No, he was 2. He was 2. You're right. He was 2.
But Jason Williams, Jay Williams, he even stayed at Duke for 3 years. He probably should have left after his second year.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. Right. So, the one and done thing, obviously was a business arrangement to help college not lose out on these guys altogether. It hasn't helped the NBA at all. It's actually gotten worse, you could argue, because you might be better off taking a guy out of high school. At least you could develop them on your team for that 1 year, but to let them go to college just to be showcased on ESPN and for the tourney, it don't get them any better. They just lose a year. They're just losing a year's time.
Yeah, yeah. So you have to lower expectations when when the kid's first coming into the league. Like you,
Yeah.
especially the way the game is played now. Like it's a skill game now.
Yeah.
So you can get exposed really really quickly if you're not ready, especially
Yeah.
if you're a point guard, or especially if you're a big man on defense.
Yeah. I mean, it's showing. It's showing with a lot of these younger guys now that you hear the names when they get drafted, and you're like, "Hey, what's up with so and so?" You can barely get on the court. It's happening a lot now. I mean, now obviously this case was a little different because there was a lot of promotion with name and the family. But you can even look at Ball, like he came in and he was struggling in the beginning. Obviously
Yeah,
a lot of expectations were thrown on him, but his teammate ended up being the guy that was a little more polished.
yeah, and he was well, I think 3 4 years at Utah, like 3 years
See,
there.
see,
And it's the physical maturity. In Ball's defense, like he, outside of his shooting, he was skilled enough, but he still could make an impact on
yeah,
the floor. So you can see, you can kind of project why he was selected as high as he is. But to your point again, that 1 year at UCLA, all it did was, like you said, kind of showcase and promote him, but it didn't necessarily help him benefit him from a development standpoint.
nah. No, you got to have multiple years to really, for those NCAA coaches to really help develop a guy, he got to be there more than 1 year. If that's really what it was about, we know otherwise. But
Yeah,
it don't help. It don't, like you said, in this new NBA, that's a skill game and a defense and skill game. With this whole 3-and-D two-way player thing, it really doesn't. The NBA has really had no benefits from the one and dones. It really hasn't. I mean, it might put butts in the seats by getting these marquee names, but it hasn't. If you look at the rosters and a lot of these teams that have kind of just toiled in mediocrity, um, you figure if the top 10 lottery picks aren't always instant impact, if you're like middle lottery and further, those guys aren't making a difference on your ball club. Hence the reason you have to tank. So
yeah, yeah. So, in the kind of play devil's advocate real quick, the leap or the gap between college and the NBA has always been pretty significant, pretty wide.
yeah,
So that's why you need those extra couple years. And if you kind of look at it over time, the draft it's always been kind of top heavy. Like the first couple picks has always been where you can kind of almost could get a rotational player
mhm.
at minimum. The later on draft picks always been like a crapshoot. Like probably like after Lowry into like the second round, it's always probably been like a crapshoot. And the teams that did their due diligence and with the scouting and everything and their player development usually always come out on top when they pick them later on in the draft. So whether the kid comes out 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, or even 4 years, that's kind of always been there. It's just that nowadays, because everything is you're exposed, everything is exposed right now from all these games been on TV, whether it's in college or NBA, social media. Most NBA fans, even casual fans, have so much information that they're privy to.
Yeah.
They're a lot, our fans are a lot more knowledgeable now than they were 20 years ago.
Oh,
So you
definitely.
can't hide. You can't if a person can't play, you can't hide them at all. Like everybody will know. Everybody will find out pretty quickly.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that about the information because a couple hours ago, I was sitting thinking, and I'm like, I'm not really a true analytics guy as far as applying and understanding the stuff, but I do see its relevance in the game today, and I think that adds to like what you're saying, with the social media and with those analytical stats that underscores some of these guys' performance. When you see that plus minus when a guy's on and off the floor or his PER, it like speaks for itself almost. Like when you see, like for example, when Okafor was in the game, we could have a 10-point lead and we would instantly lose it. And the rebound differential was abysmal every time he was in the game. So besides,
Mm-hmm. Did I lose you?